Hey family, it's African Esquire and I'm here with a new video. I just had a quick thought and I wanted to share it with you all today. I was doing some research. I'm trying to look for more books to read. I'm always trying to look for different vantage points that I could read about the African diaspora, or even not just the African diaspora, but just history in general, and learn from the mistakes that others have made and apply it to our future. One thing I came across, and it's something that I have known about, but I just thought about today, was the history of Haiti. And if you don't know the history of Haiti, Haiti was really the only successful slave rebellion in that they completely liberated themselves from the white oppressor. The Haitians on the island, they had a revolution. They went buck wild with it, and that they weren't trying to assimilate or they weren't trying to be friends with their oppressor. They said, no, we're going to basically kill you all. Now, this made the West very angry, but honestly, it wasn't just the fact that they killed so many of the colonists that were on the island of Haiti, but it was also the fact that this nation of who they seen as slaves decided that they would have the goal to say, no, we're not going to listen anymore. We're going to liberate ourselves and we're going to do us. And this symbol of liberation was such a trigger to the Western world, was such a trigger to America. I mean, if you don't know, America's seen this happening in their hemisphere and they're like, oh, heck no. We cannot tolerate this, because if we tolerate this with these people, we have these slaves over here who they might start feeling like they can tell us what to do. And it certainly wasn't very well received from the country of France. So what happened as a result was you had the Western powers, America and other countries of the West, basically conspired to end Haiti. They blockaded them. They gave them so much debt so that the country basically had a start of being millions and millions of dollars in debt. That's how they started. If you can imagine a nation coming out of nothing and having this huge debt on them that basically crippled their economy, that was what they did to Haiti. They intentionally sabotaged the liberation movement there. Now, the reason I'm talking about that is this is more so for different us who are spread out throughout the diaspora who might not identify with Africa. What would have happened if Africa was liberated back when the Haitian Revolution was happening? So at the end of what actually did happen was you had the country, the island of Haiti, the people liberated themselves from their oppressor, or so they thought, but they didn't anticipate that the Western countries were going to conspire to ruin any effort that they had to be self-sustaining. But had those people had an ally outside of their actual nation, had they actually been connected to Africa, had Africa been liberated and not on the verge of being colonized, had that been happening, that would be a completely different history for Haiti, because the problem was they had no one. It was basically them in America's waters, and America said, well, we're not going to tolerate this, and the French said the same thing. Now, learning from history, and this is what, if anything, I really hope our people understand, don't ever assume anything based off of emotion. Try to see if there's some type of thing in the past that happened that you can apply to your present situation. If you're African in America, if you're African in Jamaica, look at your history. Look at what you're fighting for in your country. If you're an African in France and England, look at what you're fighting for this very moment. Many of us don't focus on the international. Many of us are focused on, so for example, if you're African in America, you're probably just focused on being a free Black in America. You probably don't think much about trying to liberate Haiti. You probably don't think too much about trying to liberate Togo. You probably don't think much about these other places. You're probably more focused on what's going on here, because the mindset is that, how can I help those other people if I am not helped in my country? I have to help you before I can even think of helping those other countries. So if you actually do achieve your liberation, let's just first establish, number one, if you do achieve your liberation in America, and I'll say America since I'm an African in America, if I achieve my liberation here, that would be a total totally go against the agenda of white supremacy for Africans to live anywhere completely free from colonization and free from exploitation, because I would be going counter to white supremacy. then that would cause for other actors to rise up against my efforts. If I'm just Africans in America, we're a very small group. We're like 12% of the population, if that, at this point. That will cause a mass conspiracy, basically, to thwart our achievement of liberation. The same thing that happened in Haiti would essentially happen here. So I ask you, what have you learned from Haiti? If you achieve your liberation in America, who's going to help you if they say, well, you thought that you achieved this, but actually we're going to shut this down right now. We're going to bomb your Black Wall Street right now. We're going to burn down your there's also a Black Wall Street in Florida. I'm sorry, I forget the name of it. But we're going to completely ruin your efforts. We're going to put drugs in your community again. We're going to do something that's going to completely reverse what happened in this situation. What is your recourse? And that is the answer. You have none. The same way that Haiti, although they successfully were able to get the white slave master out of Haiti, and they were able to liberate themselves as far as not having to answer directly to a white man, because they didn't have an ally outside of their country, because they did not have connection to Africa, and I think they would have been willing to, but here we are in 2018. We have that ability to, if we wanted to have a connection to Africa. But because Haiti was not able to have those resources and not able to have a connection to Africa, and because Africa was on the verge of being colonized, they essentially were a sitting duck. It was only a moment, it was only a matter of time before the West was going to be able to oppress this small island, because at the end of the day, there's multiple forces who would see that their liberation was a threat to them continuing the exploitation of African people all over the world. So I say this to say, challenge really. And different people think differently about what Black progress means. You should challenge yourself. Think in the future. I think it's funny, there's different people in the conscious world, and I don't know if it's conscious, but people in the Black academia who say, okay, well, Black people, we need to focus on politics, and we need to focus on, some people say we need to focus on economics. My question is, either way that you go, if you're focused on politics, what is your ultimate goal to get politically? Is your goal to become liberated in America by being within the system of America? And if that's your goal, my question would be, what precedent are you settling this on that this is actually going to happen? Because my reading of history, and again, we're learning from history, we're not guessing what's going to happen, we're going to learn from things that happened in the past. My reading is that even when the African communities in America were very well organized and very able to petition the American government for specific things, even at those different times, the Africans in America were still not able to get over the different walls of white supremacy, because they were living inside of their country and inside of their system. So there was never a true and genuine time where we were not subjected to white supremacy. So I'm curious, what do you envision that looking like if you don't have an example? Because frankly, you've never been free in America. You've never been anything close to free in America. So what makes you think that America would be willing to free you in the future? And further, once you achieve that freedom, do you think that they will not take it from you in the future? Do you think that you will be able to live free and coexist? Do you think that it will be a situation where you have to be separate? Do you think if you are separate, do you think you'll have a Black Wall Street situation where you have the Africans thriving and enjoying life, and yet you have these people who see the African community prospering more than the white community, and therefore, because of that jealousy and rage, they were going to thwart your efforts. And ultimately, in a capitalist system, you also, I say this, I'll say it again, you have to have someone on the bottom, economically and socially. Do you think that they'll be okay with you having been the person who was always on the bottom, but now being the person who's on the top? And if you think that, then I would say again, what's your basis historically? But moreover, I want to know what would stop you from being a victim of another crack epidemic, of another mass incarceration scheme. If there was an atomic bomb, I mean, what would stop you from being that victim? And again, I would say, learning from this history of the Haitian Revolution, let's understand that there's really nothing to stop us, because our only ally is ourselves. The 12% of us who are in America because we don't bother to go outside of our borders and understand that us being African is the most important thing about us. And when I say that, I understand there's a reason why no matter what country you're in, no matter whether you're on a continent or whether you're in Europe or in China, universally, if you are an African person, that determines more about what your lifestyle is going to be and what your culture is going to be than anything else about you. You can be born a woman, you can be born rich, you can be anything you want, but that's going to be the thing that's going to determine your lifestyle, your livelihood, and whether or not you will have money. So understanding that in the white supremacist context, your Africanness is what makes you what's most important about how you're going to live your life. Understand that in the same way, that is the common thing that's connecting you to people who are overseas and who have the same struggle. And if we all wake up to the fact that we do have the same struggle and that, hey, if I'm fighting for this and you're fighting for this, maybe I should support you while I'm over here and while you're over there. If we can all wake up to that, then that will create a completely different situation. Because I'll tell you right now, us by ourselves, we're not a threat to the system. We're not a threat. The little 12% of us in America, or I don't know how many of us are in different countries in Europe, even just individual countries. Jamaica. If Africans in Cuba say, hey, we're gonna be a threat to the white supremacist international system. If us in the Dominican Republic, we're not a threat individually. But when you have multiple countries of Africans saying the same thing, and saying we're going to back you up, that's when you become a threat. And that's when you'll see the situation really change. So that's all I have for you today. I will see you all in another video.